had a good day today at the Capitol. It's always good to see many smiley faces from Mercer County. Let me just talk very briefly about something I'm very proud of, and that's West Virginia's financial condition. I'm sure that y'all watch the TV and so forth just the way I do, but when you see what's happening in Wisconsin and Ohio and other states with the kind of cuts they've had to make and the kind of protests that are going on, that's something we're very fortunate about in West Virginia, that we have not had to do that. Our budget is in good shape. We've worked at it for many years to make sure that we're paying down our debts, especially with our retirement systems, teachers' retirements in particular. We've been fortunate that we've been able to produce our natural resources in West Virginia, in particular coal, where the price of metallurgical coal is very high. So we are doing very well. Our rainy day fund is one of the top 3 in the country out there. So, you know, those are the kind of things that we can be proud of in West Virginia. We've not had to make any layoffs, cut programs, or raise taxes, and we continue to try to lower our taxes, in particular our business taxes. Our corporate net income tax is continuing to go down from 8.5% to 6.5%, and by 2015, our business franchise tax will be completely eliminated. And this year, I've also proposed that we lower our sales tax on food by another %, which will take it down to 2%. And I know that the state of Virginia is very dear and near to all of you in Mercer County. And for the first time, if we're able to reduce this tax and put $26 million back in the pockets of taxpayers, that will be 0.5% below the state of Virginia. So I think that's very good for border businesses. But with that said, obviously we still have challenges out there that we've got to meet. We have concerns with the EPA and their position, especially on coal mining and for southern West Virginia. That's obviously a big employer for us down there. So we're continuing to fight some of their encroachment on what I consider to be states' powers and regulate our own industry. So with that said, I just once again want to welcome you here today. And if any of you have any questions of me or what's going on with state government, I'll be happy to respond to them.
Don't be shy.
Come on. Yes, but Barbara.
Are you disappointed at the slowness of passage of bills and you know, a lot of critics of the do nothing legislature? What, you've been there for so many years. What do you think?
As we all know, and for those of you who don't know, this is my 37th year of either been in the legislature and now sitting across the hall over here. But the first half of all the sessions were slow. And obviously there were a few bumps with the rules, especially the joint rules between the House and Senate. Those have been worked out now. The committees have been meeting since day one, and obviously it takes a few weeks for the delegates and senators to be able to converse with their constituents to see what bills they would be interested in. So even though it appears to be slow, I think it's probably just about the normal pace. We're a little bit over halfway through the session. As we all know, it's the second half, and most of the bills are actually passed and sent to the governor's desk. So no, I'm really not disappointed. Like I said, we're living in historic times in West Virginia. This is only the second time in the history of our state where we've had a vacancy in the governor's office, and the Senate President has become the governor. And first time was back in the late 1860s when our first governor went to the U.S. Senate and left a gap of about 6 days there when the Senate President Farnsworth became the acting governor for 6 days. So, yeah, I think that we're moving along and things done. I know that I had a very smooth transition from the Manchin administration to mine. I was able to fill all the department heads in a relatively fast period of time. We anticipated this change was coming. And it's one of those things that maybe my new administration started working on early. So, we didn't have any lapse in service or anything to stop state government. We continue on this. Our Constitution had, I guess, envisioned that we would do. So I'm pleased with what the House and Senate both have been able to do, and I know we'll continue to do this people's business here in the next 3 weeks or so. Yes, sir.
Governor, what are the major items on your agenda that you'd like to see
Well,
really addressed?
the thing that, I truly want to do is to create jobs in the state of West Virginia. It's my philosophy that, it's government's job to create a friendly or a good business climate. And it's up to private industry to create the kind of jobs. And that's exactly what we're trying to do. I've instructed my department heads, especially for their inspectors, if they go out, no matter which department it is, to go out with the idea that we're here, we want you to follow the law, we're going to work with you to do it, as opposed to going in with the attitude that we're here to close you down. And I think that's what the role that the government should be playing, is to help businesses, help them be able to do their job. Obviously, they're not to comply with the law, but do it in a helpful manner as opposed to going out trying to close business down. That's number one priority is creating jobs. Obviously, we need to improve our education system. We've got some conditions in West Virginia I think are completely unacceptable. First one is our high dropout rate in our K through 12 school system. We've got one of the highest ones in the country. And we've got to be able to identify these children, and when you wait till they're a junior or senior high school, it's too late. They're already gone, in my opinion. But if we can get them in the middle school and find those traits in those children, or knowing what's going on with their home, where we're not giving the encouragement, that's when we need to start working with them and make sure that they stay in the classroom and that they complete their education, encourage them that they've got to go on if they're going to be productive citizens in the state. Another thing that we got to do is raise our college graduation rates. Once again, we're one of the lowest in the country. And we've got to, whether it's a 3-year baccalaureate degree, or whether it's a 2-year associate degree, or a 1-year certificate, I think it's so important, the difference it makes in a person's life, just having that extra year or whatever to complete a degree, and the amount of money they'll be making, and the kind of job they'll be able to take in West Virginia. The third thing is obviously the financial stability. It's something I've worked on ever since I was finance chairman 17, 18 years ago. It's put this state on good financial footing. And I think it's paying off what we were able to do back then and continue to follow the role of the financial responsible spending of the taxpayers' dollars. Yes, sir, Judge.
Governor, our Board of Education and our 2 colleges, Bluefield State, Concord, and other government organizations are concerned about the OPEB issue, other post-employment benefits, and the listing of those in their financial records and the effect that has on their credit rating and borrowing ability. There doesn't seem to be much interest or action on that in either the House or the Senate. I just wanted to know your position on that, and whether there's any effort to give some relief to these government organizations.
Absolutely. It's one of those things, especially the Senate has been working on for the last several years. As you know, Senator McCabe in particular has taken the lead and working with others. I understand that there's a lot more cooperation between the House and Senate group that's been working on this. And for those of you who do not know what OPEB is, it's other post-employment benefits. And it's estimated their liability is somewhere in the neighborhood of about $8 billion. So depending on who you want to listen to, it's between $4 and $8 billion, but at the same time, it's a big debt that we got out there. And mostly what that comes to is benefits that's been granted to public employees and teachers over the years, especially for health care. And basically, back in the 1980s, there was a great deal of absenteeism among state workers. And one of the kind of perks that was offered at the time was to be able to use your sick leave. If you come to work and accumulate your sick leave when you retire, that you could get public employees insurance. But back in the 1980s, the cost of medical care was this compared to what it is today. And I don't think anyone ever envisioned that. We have been able to, as of last July, say that any employee hired after July 1st of last year could no longer use their unused sick leave days for health insurance after they retire. That's one little step that it stops some of the hemorrhaging out there. However, for the time that employee retires, it's going to be 30 years down the road, and it's going to take a long time for that to be, a real benefit to decreasing OPEB liability. Some of the other things that we're looking at is we have a lot of people, especially in the Eastern Panhandle, who will retire over in Virginia or Maryland and come to West Virginia, and once again get in our retirement system and our PEIA system. So now we're saying before you can get into it, you've got to be or one of the proposals is that you don't teach for 10 years and work with the state for 10 years before you can even get involved with their systems. And I think that's going to slow down the number of people who will be coming in, working for a short period, looking for those kind of benefits. So there's several proposals out there. One of them is also a proposal to increase the cigarette tax and put a certain amount of that toward OPEB each year. But my opinion is the OPEB crisis with the liability can come down overnight, and we can't get rid of it overnight. I think that whatever route we go, it's going to be kind of like what we did with our teachers' retirement system when it was on the verge of bankruptcy, and that was to lay out a 30 or 40-year plan in order to pay down these liabilities, and particularly stop the hemorrhaging, because every day if we don't do anything, that liability continues to grow. Thank you. Yes, sir.
What are your thoughts, Governor, on the Marcellus Shale drilling legislation that is being looked at?
I think, in my opinion, the Marcellus Shale drilling is one of the most exciting things that's happened in West Virginia, probably my lifetime and most of our lifetimes. And I think that the technology that's available today is unbelievable. The amount of gas that's in that particular strata of gas out there. But one of the things to me that's so exciting is the byproducts or the waste products that comes from Marcellus Shale, and that's about 20%. And basically, and I'm not an expert on Marcellus Shale by any stretch of the imagination, but you can take those waste products and put it through, I will call it a machine called a cracker, and a cracker costs about $1 billion to build. And basically, it turns the waste gas, ethane, into ethylene, and produce the basic building blocks for the chemical industry and for the plastics industry. I think that we have the potential in a very short window of time to take advantage of it, of being able to complete our manufacturing jobs in West Virginia. I think that potentially thousands of new jobs to come to our state simply because of this process. I can tell you that during my period of time as governor, on at least a weekly basis, I've got companies coming in from outside, not asking for money or not asking for tax credits, but wanting to come here, put the crackers in. We've got pipeline companies that's ready to lay the pipelines. And my opinion is we could probably handle either 2 or 3 of these so-called crackers out there in order to produce those building blocks. It appears, obviously, but most of the Marcellus drilling is in north central and northern panhandle of West Virginia. And it would be my opinion that one of these new cracker facilities will be located probably in the Wetzel County area. The other one potentially will be here in the Kanawha Valley, since we do have the pipelines to be able to get that gas down to this part of the state. So I think it's going to really do some great things both in northern and southern West Virginia. Yes, sir.
Governor, last November, I spoke at a public hearing about a utilities rate hike request. And at that time, I made my plea to try to temper the level of that rate hike request based upon the affordability and the disparity region to region in the state for the same amount of the same product. And the council, assistant counsel for the Consumer Advocates Division of the PSC, told me afterwards, said everything he said was terrific except for the fact that there's nothing in state code that mandates that a utility has to be affordable in order to gain approval. And he also said that there is existing court case decisions that back that up, that investors have to be able to be, it has to be attractive enough in terms of rate of return for investors to come into it. Given the fact that the primary pushback that the public oftentimes expresses when you see double-digit rate hike requests come in from certain utilities, what remedies exist out there, what steps can be taken within the state in order to make sure that the affordability factor comes more to the forefront?
That's a tough question. Obviously, our utilities are monopolies in West Virginia and in most states across the union. They're guaranteed a certain amount of return on their investment. I think probably one of this last rate increases, and I'm just speaking off the top of my head, I have no knowledge what that says in the PSC at this time, but it was because of the severe winter and the condition of our power lines that they have spent a whole lot more money cutting right-of-ways and replacing lines and so forth. Because it was terrible last year when some people did without power, some people for close to a month out there, simply because, you know, they did not maintain the right-of-ways and so forth. I can tell you that, you know, there are programs out there, especially for the very poor, you know, that assist people with their electric bills and so forth. And it's a concern, especially with our senior citizens, some of our frailest people out there that, you know, may be trying to conserve and end up getting themselves sick. But, you know, it's a tough situation, and you know, I applaud you for testifying for the PSC or at the hearings, you know, in order to share your concerns about it. That's, you know, the best answer I can give you right now, and we'll continue to monitor. I know that Appalachian Power has once again applied for another substantial rate hike. I'm just hoping that through some way we can get around that without having to raise the people's electric bills. I saw my mom's electric bill last month. It was $600. I thought, she paid the bill the month before. She had. So, of course, my mom likes her house real hot. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Are there any advancements you're trying to achieve in the field of technology for the quality of life in West Virginia?
Advancements?
Is there anything you're get us up to speed with the rest of the country? And we're very secluded here in West Virginia, and we don't have all the youth like the same. You understand what I'm trying to say?
And yes, the answer is yes, we do. We've been very fortunate that we were able to receive a grant from the federal government for broadband, and that basically Verizon, or not Verizon, but Frontier will be handling that, as I understand it. But basically put broadband in all areas of West Virginia, you know, so that we can continue to advance. Because, and I think that we will probably be one of the leaders in the country once this project is complete. Anybody remember the amount?
Leading counties in the state, Mercer County.
It was like $100 million. But yeah, we got from the federal government in order to do this, and I think that's so important. You know, and one of the other things is, the way I think it's important is to be able to have the availability of broadband. Not only will it attract businesses and other professionals in the state who would work from West Virginia to do that, but our school system, we always talk about trying to get our kids in the classroom for 180 days. Obviously, this year, I don't think we're going to meet that again because of the kind of weather we've had in the last 6 weeks or so. But I think that what we need to move toward is being able, on those days when a child can't make it to school, that they can still get that instruction at home on their computers, so they do not get behind. So, yes, we are continuing to advance on the technological front. Yes, sir.
Governor, I live in Raleigh County, and our roads are in real bad shape in that area, especially some of the back roads. 19 is pretty bad in several places. What's the budget for our state roads, and is there any way to bring in more money, or do you have any agenda to put more money into state roads?
Let me just say that our state road funds, and Marvin Murphy said that as better than I can for the Department of Highways. Marvin, if I'm wrong, you can correct me. But our state road fund, obviously, is a special revenue fund, you know, so is the fuel revenue fund. And basically, the money for the state road fund comes from fuel tax, as well as registration fees and other fees within the Department of Motor Vehicles. And that the funding level has become stagnant for several reasons. First of all, high price of gas. People are not buying as much gas as they used to be. Secondly, more fuel-efficient vehicles out there, and then we're into the hybrids and so forth, where we're not using as much gasoline. So therefore, we're not getting the kind of fuel tax that we had in the past. Obviously, the cost of repairing roads and construction and so forth continues to go up, and has tremendously in the last 5 years or so. But one of the committees, Transportation Committee in the Senate, is currently looking at various fees with the Department of Highways. That being registration, titles and all those things. Some of those have not been increased since the early or mid-1950s. So rather than paying $2, I think they're proposing a different amount. But the figure I heard was there is possibility of raising possibly about $50 million this year And basically, that will be dedicated especially to our secondary or back roads, as you call it. And so we are looking at that. I expect us to have an aggressive paving project this spring. Marvin, do you have anything to add to that?
No, we do have an aggressive payment program, a little bit less than last year, but part of the last year was with stimulus money, but we are going to have one, and what you said is exactly right. We're working on that. We are planning on dedicating it to secondary roads.
Marvin's a chief highway engineer, so he knows about those tax dollars. Yes, sir.
Something important to our county, improving business climate, infrastructure is something that is important beyond Border County. Last month, the senators and legislators talked to you about the Oakdale Water Project that we were requesting funding from the ARC that you're in charge of. Could you give us an update on your progress on that or thoughts on it?
Yes, I'm very much aware of the Oakdale project. I think it's a very worthwhile project. I'm working with the Infrastructure Council and others to try to obtain the kind of funding, and I think that can't say 100% today, but I feel very positive that we will be able to complete the Oakdale project.
Thanks.
Questions? Okay. Well, thank you all very much. I hope you enjoy your day, and it's good to see you all.